My name's Christy, and I'm a product manager here at Alpaca. And just a little bit about my background. I recently graduated from the University of Florida, where I got my degree in computer science. So my background is more on the technical side of things, and now I'm working on more of the product side of things here at Alpaca. And my focus is really to deliver products that are at the forefront of the tech industry and that are developer focused. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about Broker API here. Broker API, if you haven't heard of it and if you haven't used it before, Broker API really provides a end-to-end brokerage experience through our APIs. So what this really means is all the core functionality that you would need to build your own trading app is provided through our API. So this really simplifies the whole development process. You kind of have to really focus on the front end and nailing that down and nailing down the user experience, while we'll take care of the back end and anything that comes along with financial related and trading related apps and things like that. We'll be handling the processing of that on our end. And just to quickly mention, kind of the goal of Broker API is to really enable anyone from anywhere in the world to launch their own commission-free trading app. And this is really aligned with our overall mission here at Alpaca to increase access to the US stock market to anyone, anywhere in the world. And we believe that equal access is really important, and financial opportunities is a great place to start and a great step in the right direction. To talk a little bit more about Broker API specific use cases and kind of what you can build with Broker API. You can create anything from simple trading apps to advanced trading platforms. And what's really great about Broker API is that we offer a wide range of product offerings and features. So you can kind of pick and choose what you need based on the product that you're hoping to build and kind of who your intended users are going to be and their needs. Just to talk a little bit about the different account types or different correspondent setups that we support. We support advisors, custodian accounts, trading apps, broker dealers, and more. So today the focus is really going to be on trading apps. And in this setup, Alpaca or us we are going to be handling all of the KYC, all the compliance and legal stuff kind of on our end. So you would be focused more as like a tech company in the situation and kind of focus on really nailing your product down and delivering it to users rather than focusing on the legal and compliance side of things. On that note, I want to talk about Ribbit. So what exactly is Ribbit? Ribbit is an open source commission-free trading app built on top of our Broker API. And we built this, we kind of designed it as a reference app to demonstrate what you can build with our products. And I just want to clarify that this wasn't designed as a white label app. So we don't recommend that you go into our code base and kind of download the code and replace the Ribbit logos with your own and launch to users because it does not contain production ready code. But it's really designed to kind of demonstrate what you can build with Broker API and how specific API endpoints translate to an overall user experience and kind of spark ideas for what you might want to build into your own trading app and what you can build with Broker API just in general. So moving on, the first thing that I want to talk about here is the account onboarding process. So this is kind of the first step that you're going to have to deal with when building your own trading app is how to get users onto your app, how to get them in your app, using your app while still being compliant with, all the financial requirements, since this is going to be a financial app. So just so we're all on the same page, when I'm talking about onboarding here, onboarding is the process of gathering user information so you can complete the KYC process and open a user's account. And for anyone who isn't familiar with KYC, KYC is the Know Your Customer process. And this is required of any institution who deals with financial information or financial data in order to be compliant with anti-money laundering rules and regulations. So essentially, you are required to verify a user's identity to ensure that they're not going to be getting on your app to conduct illegal activity or anything that we would want to avoid. So yeah, and in a tech setup, which for this case specifically that we're talking about today, we are going to be handling the KYC process on your behalf. So you just kind of have to worry about obtaining all this user information, gathering it all, and sending it to us here at Alpaca. And to talk a little bit more about what this user experience looks like, I included some screenshots here of kind of how the onboarding experience looks like within Ribbit itself. So here on these 3 screenshots down here below, so the first screenshot is kind of the Ribbit homepage, what users would see when they first open your app and they're going to create their own account. Once they create an account, the first thing that they're going to see is the onboarding flow. So they would be prompted to collect all this information, all this required information that's required to collect, things like name, date of birth, citizenship status, social security number, things like that. Throughout this process, there's a number of tips that we can talk about and things like that. But yeah, this is kind of the overall flow of how Ribbit implemented this. Different prompts are split up into different screens. And then the final step in this process is to have the user review their application and kind of just make sure that all the information is correct and accurate. Because if you do send us incomplete or inaccurate information, it will just slow down the KYC process that we conduct on our end, and just lead to delays in the account approval process and ultimately getting accounts active and ready to trade. And just to talk about the broker API side of things, for completing this, you would be using our account API, which is offered under broker API. So really all you would need to do is kind of handle this on the front end, is gathering this information. And then on this last step where users are verifying all their information, once they click next, you would make that call to our account creation endpoint and send us all this information, and we would conduct the KYC process on your behalf. I also want to talk about some onboarding tips of how to build a successful onboarding experience for your users. So the first thing I want to mention is performing validation on user input. And I included an example of that on the last slide of that second screenshot of when a user was entering their address, there was validation on the user input for their zip code, and the user could not continue through the flow if they did not provide a valid zip code. And this just helps prevent any missteps or inaccurate information from getting through and ultimately getting sent our way, because as I mentioned before, it will just result in delays to the KYC process, and performing this validation is just going to streamline the whole process and ensure a smooth and quick account approval process. So the second thing I want to talk about is it's really important to really take the time to understand the KYC requirements in the countries your users are from, because the KYC requirements can differ depending on the country that you're onboarding them from. If they're from a high risk level country versus a low level of risk, the difference in requirements could mean a difference in the number of documents you have to collect, number of sides, things like that. So it's really important to understand what's going to be required of your users that you're intending to onboard and build that into your flow appropriately. And the third tip that I want to talk about is just spending time to really perfect this flow to optimize the user experience. Because I talked a little bit about how Ribbit splits us up into different screens to collect different areas of information and things like that. But it might be worth experimenting if users prefer entering all this information all in one page, or if that kind of user experience could intimidate users and cause them to drop off and kind of never come back to your app, things like that. So things like that are important to consider and just kind of optimize the user experience at this level. So yeah, on that note, I want to kind of pause here and answer any questions about onboarding. I think we got a couple questions already. So the first question, I assume as a tech company from offering these services through Alpaca, we would still need to get our own investment license, right? Yes, I believe you have to operate kind of on your own licenses. The licensing requirement can kind of differ depending on your jurisdiction requirements and things like that. But yeah, the main purpose of the tech setup is that we're going to be handling kind of the KYC requirements on our end and kind of any other tax reporting, things like that, anything that we can handle on our end, we will handle in that setup. And now a question from Michael is, do you support users from the UK? Yes, we do support users from the UK. So if there's any more questions, feel free to turn off your mic and ask directly or to type them here in the chat, whatever works. We have another question. Can we as hedge funds use the broker API to onboard separately managed accounts? Can you kind of clarify what you're kind of asking by that? I'll come back to that question in just a second. Which type of information is required when applying to sign up for the application? So the required KYC information that is required to collect is all of the required fields that are required to pass in through the accounts API. So what you would need to collect to pass a valid request to the account creation endpoint is the required KYC information that we are required to collect. And there might be some additional requirements on top of that, like additional documents you have to send us. So we definitely encourage you to work with our sales team early on to really understand the onboarding process and what's going to be required of the users that you're hoping to onboard specifically to which countries you're going to be onboarding from. We have another question from Whoopi. Do we design the form to collect the info, or does Ribbit have all the forms, or is Ribbit just an example to build on? So yeah, as I mentioned before, Ribbit is strictly just an example to build on. We do not recommend using that code base. It does not have production ready code. So yeah, it's just kind of an example of one way to implement a trading app built using our broker API. It's strictly as a reference app of kind of what you can build and spark any ideas from there. So yeah, definitely take any freedoms that you can and get creative with building out your own onboarding flow. Question from Mike: does Ribbit have a Figma or XD layout? Ribbit does not have a Figma that we share with users. It's an open source code, so we do have the code base available to the public, and that's located. You can find the links within our docs, or you can find the links. We have some announcement articles around it as well within our resources and blog pages and things like that. So I would look to those resources for more information. Question from Navjeen: using the broker API, is there revenue sharing between Alpaca and us? So we are a commission-free trading platform, and we could potentially charge you for some different things, like I'll talk about later on. For the market data API, we offer like a free plan and a paid plan, and there's some differences there. Or if you want to work really closely with our sales team, we kind of have like an advice package where we can kind of help you build out your trading app and kind of guide you in the right direction of how best to proceed. And so that's like something that we would charge you for. But for using our products to get started right away with Broker API, it's completely free, and you can go ahead and grab your API keys and get started using it right away.
Hey, Christy, if we're missing an essential component to the KYC when we're building an app, do you guys communicate that to us if there's an error?
Yeah, that's something that we'll definitely communicate to you guys. And if you work with us early on in your process of building out your app, we'll definitely go through an onboarding checklist with you and kind of what will be required for you to collect depending on your users that you're going to be working with. But if you kind of do not work with us early on, then yeah, that's something that we'll communicate to you at a later point as well, and let you know that you're missing some things that should be required there. So yeah, we'll let you know. We have another question. What are the user states during onboarding, i.e. began, in process, review, incomplete, rejected? So yeah, I can talk a little bit more about how we handle the KYC process here at Alpaca. So kind of once you send us the information here, we'll take it and we'll perform a CIP check on it, which means the customer identification program check. So we have multiple different vendors that we use to complete this, and they kind of check different local databases for where your users are located to just help verify their overall identity. So we run that check, and then if there's any issues with that check, it gets sent to action required, and that requires manual review by a Series 27 person on our staff. And then that person has to go ahead and manually investigate the account and see if there's any discrepancies or things to be worried about that we wouldn't want to approve the account for, or we might need to request additional documentation to verify the user's identity and things like that. And so you'll receive updates throughout the whole KYC process, and this is provided through the Events API. Within there, you can see different KYC result codes for things that will require action on your end for collecting additional documents from users, or just letting you know that we're investigating the account further, and that's why it's still an action required and hasn't been approved yet. The different states that kind of we will let you know about are reflected in the account status. So we do have like a submitted, approval pending, action required, approved, and active states. And for a full list, you can definitely look at our documentation. It should list all the account statuses there as well. Another question: can you confirm that we need to get an investment license, especially in the US? Yeah, I believe so. I want to defer to our sales team in this case, though, just to be 100% sure. I would definitely recommend reaching out to them, and they'll let you know like a complete list of the requirements on your end, just because I'm not 100% certain on this and I don't want to give you the wrong information. But yeah, I would definitely recommend reaching out to our sales team on that question. Another question: are the events in a queue which we pull on a schedule? So the Events API is sent through through server sent events. So it is a stream that you can kind of continue monitoring as your users are continuing to submit accounts. You can continue monitoring that stream and receive account updates there. And then you'll receive, real-time updates as to what's needed and the status of those updates through there.
If there are no other questions, maybe we can leave them for the end.
Sure. Yeah, we can continue moving on. The next thing that I want to talk about is account funding. Once your user has successfully onboarded onto your app, their account is approved or active or whatever state it's in, they're going to be able to fund their account. So funding can be accomplished through the bank, ACH relationships, and transfers APIs. So the bank API is responsible for establishing a relationship between your user's account on your app and their Alpaca brokerage account. The ACH relationships API is used to establish a relationship between a specific bank account type, like checkings account or savings account, between that account and their Alpaca brokerage account. And then the transfers API is going to be used to actually initiate and handle the processing on the back end of any deposits and withdrawals that the user is going to be making from your app. And so our transfers API supports ACH transfers for US users and wire transfers for international users. And one thing I want to mention here is that you should definitely consider the user experience here as well. It's really important, especially when it comes to things like onboarding new users. After they complete the onboarding experience, are you going to want them to prompt them to fund their account immediately after that? Or are you going to kind of let them navigate through your app, play around through your app, and get excited about what they can do, and then prompt them to fund their account at a later point in time? These are definitely important things to consider when building this into your app. And so I want to talk a little bit more about how Ribbit accomplishes account funding in that app as well. Ribbit uses Plaid Link. And if you aren't familiar with Plaid Link, it's used to link the user's bank account to their Alpaca brokerage account. And Plaid Link is the client-side component that your users would interact with. So this screenshot here on the right shows what it's going to look like and what your users can expect to see. So again, this really helps simplify and streamline the whole process, because you're going to have the client side dealt with, and then our APIs are going to deal with the back side and the handling and processing side of things. So, and just to quickly mention how this works through Broker API, Plaid Link is supported through the ACH relationships API. So you just have to kind of send us the processor token, I believe it is, and that's kind of all we need to get started and link that bank account directly to the Alpaca brokerage account from there. Executing orders. Now that your user has actually funded their account, they've onboarded, they're ready to get started in trading, how can they accomplish this? So our trading API provides everything you need to integrate securities trading into your app. So Ribbit specifically uses the assets, orders, and portfolio history API endpoints to accomplish this. And I want to talk a little bit about the user experience here as well. So here's some screenshots here on the right from Ribbit, and this is kind of the screenshot here on the left is the main page of Ribbit, the home page that the user would see. So from here, they're going to see their overall performance, their portfolio performance over time, their favorite stocks, and then of course they can navigate through the app as well. And just to talk a little bit about the portfolio here at the top. So this graph is accomplished through our portfolio history API. So it lets you query different time periods and different time frames of granularity, like it shows 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, and so on and so forth. And you can show different levels of granularity, like up to a 1-minute granularity or up to a daily granularity. And you can actually query the account's equity and profit loss percentage, things like that, just to help indicate to the user their overall performance and their investment strategy performance over time as well, to help them gain a better understanding of how their trading experience is going so far. And so to talk a little bit about how to actually execute orders, this screen right here on the right is how Ribbit accomplishes this. So the UI kind of takes in shows all this information of, the stock, the current price, the quantity or the price that the user would want to buy or sell the stock at. And we also support fractional trading as well. So that would be supported as well. The user can also customize like the order type, and they can directly see how much funds they have available in their account. So things like that are things that you would need to collect on the UI on your side. And then once they clicked like buy or sell, that would get sent through the orders API. You would call that endpoint, and then we would actually execute the order and handle all the processing on our end. And I also quickly want to mention the positions, watch list, and trading configurations APIs as well. There's some added functionality here that you can make use of, like through the positions API, you can kind of see your users' open positions, you can close their position, close all positions, things like that. Or you can also create watch lists like this favorite stocks right here on the left screenshot. That's something that you can do through our watch list API, or you can also set trading configurations, like if you want to disable fractional trading on an account or enable margin trading, things like that can be accomplished through the trading configurations APIs. And now I'd like to open up the floor to any questions about account funding or executing orders. I think we had some questions coming in so far. Oh, there was an earlier question from Mike going back to the onboarding. Who is responsible for logging events for compliance, not tech purposes? We kind of handle this both on the tech side and from a people side. So when we run the customer identification check, if there's any issues there that are immediately flagged, we kind of handle we include some handling on the tech side, and we send some events right away, depending on the results that we get there. But if something requires human eyes, something that needs to be investigated further by an actual person, then our operations person, who's a Series 2027 certified person, will investigate that and relay any event updates through them. Now, another question from Whoopi: is there a paper trading level where users could explore the app without real funds? Yes, we do offer and within Broker API as a whole, we offer a sandbox environment and a production environment. So you can simulate the production level, executing trades and all of that, and kind of the entire functionality within a sandbox level or a paper level as well. And we'll mimic all the production level behavior there. And you can use that as well. Another question from Lauren: can you fund an account with euros? Are Belgian banks supported from that list of drop choices? So right now, at the moment, we only support trading and funding in US dollars. So as for the question around Belgian banks within that Plaid link client component, I'm going to defer to Plaid links documentation on that, onto what banks they support within Plaid, because it's on their end. But you can link a Belgian bank account through our bank API, directly through the bank account number and things like that. Another question from Robert: apart from Plaid, any other providers you support? We are working to integrate more vendors as well, but at the moment we only support Plaid. Question from Revant: can we build our own dashboards in the Broker API using for instance dash? Could you clarify what you mean by for instance dash? I'm not quite sure what you mean there. I'll come back to that. Question from Omar: trades are currently limited to US equities only, right? Does it include mutual funds and fixed income, or only stocks and ETFs on the US exchanges only, or OTC positions available as well? So yeah, assets are currently limited to US equities only at the moment. We do only support stocks and ETFs on US exchanges, yes. For some of those other specific questions, I will defer to our documentation or our sales team if you want to follow up with them, because I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head and I don't want to give you wrong information. Question from Jonathan: advice on source of truth. We save things like transaction history in our DB. Does Alpaca also save everything and we have to sync to Alpaca's data? So yeah, we do implement our own record keeping on our end, and it's a matter of compliance as well as being able to record and report any transactions, any trades, any non-trade activity as well. So we do store that on our end. You don't have to sync to our data, but if you do need more information to, I guess, if there's an issue with your data that you're concerned about and you want to verify that the data is aligned with our data, that's something that you could reach out to our sales and success team and get that information from them. From Revant: Dash is an example of a dashboard building software. So I'm not aware if we use any like dashboard building software kind of that we support for Broker API. I don't believe so, but I'm not familiar, so I can't say 100% for sure. Question from Sergey: Plaid is available in the US, Canada, the UK, France, Spain, Ireland, and the Netherlands. What about other countries? So in terms of Plaid link support, if that's what Plaid supports, then that's what Plaid supports. But as I mentioned before, you can link other countries' bank accounts directly through our bank API. You just need to provide the bank account information. We'll handle the rest on our end. Question from Jake. Do you plan on releasing margin trading? Will it be possible to use margin to trade fractions? We do support margin trading at the moment, yes. You do have to work with our sales team to kind of enable that on a correspondent or partner level. So yeah, and they can provide you more information on that as well. Will global securities be supported at some point? So it is kind of on our long-term roadmap. I can't provide an overall timeline as when we will support that, but it's definitely something that we're looking into and hope to provide support for one day. Can orders OTO order trigger orders so we can set stops at a time of entry open? So the order types that we support are market, limit, stop limit, or trailing stop. So yeah, you can add some specific order triggers and you can implement some handling there.
Okay. If there are no more questions on this, we can move on.
Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about today is adding market data to your app. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier before, but we offer a paid and a free version of the market data API, and it's split up even further between historical data and real-time data. Just to be clear, though, the historical data does offer near real-time data. The main difference is that historical data is obtained through API endpoints versus real-time data is obtained through a WebSocket, so you can actually stream that data in real time. And so there's some differences between what you would have access to, but depending on which plan you have. For any information on that, I would definitely recommend reading our documentation. We have some specific pricing differences there that you can look to. But I want to talk more about how Ribbit uses market data API. So Ribbit uses the bars and snapshots API. So the bars API kind of provides an aggregate historical data for any requested securities. So if we're looking here at the screenshot on the right, the security is Ribbit in this case. So kind of I provided an example screenshot here below of what the response would look like from the bars API. So the T is going to be the timestamp, the OH, LC are going to be the open, high, low, and close prices, and the V is the volume. So you can use these data points and directly put it in the application, like here, how Ribbit does under the statistics section. And then if you want, you can also use the bars API to kind of query for extended time periods or different time frames as well. So that's kind of how Ribbit accomplishes this graph up here at the top of this screenshot, is by querying the bars API for differing time periods and time frames and using the open price for each time frame that the user would want to look at to generate this graph. So yeah, this is kind of how Ribbit makes use of the market data API and kind of how you can use a little bit of, an overview of our data to provide some more insight for your users. And I also want to mention that Ribbit doesn't use the real-time WebSocket, but I would definitely recommend looking into it because it can provide some flexibility to build features that are reliant on streams of real data, such as price alerts and things like that, things that might be useful for users depending on which users you're targeting and their needs and things like that. So yeah, if you're interested in that, I would definitely recommend reading more of our documentation around the real-time WebSocket there as well. And so with that note, I'd like to open it up to general Q&A, revisiting anything that I've talked about today that you might have questions on or about market data API as well. Feel free to send them in the chat or unmute yourself. Question from Richard, is there an event stream for order fulfillment to observe the trades in near real time? Yeah, so our event API also provides order updates. So you'll receive updates on those as well and kind of when they're fulfilled, or if the user tries to cancel the order or wants to cancel the order. Like if it hasn't been fulfilled already, then we can cancel the order and you can see like those types of updates through there as well. So yeah, definitely our events API is good to use for viewing order updates. Another question from Whoopi, is market data direct from NASDAQ or is it from an aggregator mixing multiple exchanges? So we actually draw from it's using SIP data. So we use, it's an aggregate of multiple exchanges, all in one place. So that's how we draw that data from. Another question, do you support pre-market trading? We do support extended hours trading. So yeah, it supports pre-market and aftermarket standard hours as well. Another question from Navjaveen, any countries you guys are looking to expand to at the moment, like Canada? We are always looking to support our coverage, but yeah, it could potentially happen in the future. I can't say for sure if we have a timeline on that, but that's kind of the status on that. Question from Whoopi, is there an example of error message to be able to debug programming issues, or are there dedicated staff for this help? Or is it self-help, or is there a form to post questions into? So we do kind of provide some of our error messages and status codes so you can kind of build in handling into your own app. But in terms of, seeking help for programming issues or like a forum, we do have a community Slack, which is pretty active, and Alpaca staff is very active on it as well. So if you have any questions or any issues that you're running into, you can definitely post there, and either other members of the community who are passionate about Alpaca will respond to you, or someone from Alpaca will respond to you. So I would definitely recommend looking into that as well. Question from Michael, we will use our own Plaid API keys. So the Plaid link, it does require you to use your own Plaid API keys. So yeah, you'd have to obtain those. Question from Navjaveen, is there a roadmap of features you guys are looking to implement into the broker API that we can see? A little bit later in this presentation, Crystal's going to talk about some coming soon features that are coming to broker API, but we do not provide an overall roadmap of everything that we're planning so far, but we'll give you guys a little sneak peek into this webinar today. Can users use their Alpaca trading account, or do they need to follow the opening account process again via our app? So if a user already has an Alpaca trading account through our Algo dashboard, they would have to open another account for using your app if you are intending to create an app, because there is a difference between our direct user accounts versus our brokerage accounts. So they would have to open another account. Yeah. Question from Michael. From your experience as a product manager, what features do you think are needed in a trading app or missing in current ones? I think there are a lot of features that are needed in a trading app. I think what's really important is kind of, obviously all the fundamental things like access to securities information, executing orders, things like that. In terms of what's missing, I think it would be great if, trading apps, at least here in the US where I'm from, what's really big is Robinhood, and Robinhood doesn't provide a lot of, I guess, high level data. What's kind of frustrating with them specifically is like their portfolio history graph is like very simplified. And it's like, it doesn't give you the best overall overview of like your performance over time. And so it'd be great to kind of get some insight into their calculations behind profit, loss, and equity and things like that, and kind of provide other methods for calculating those. I think that would be really interesting to see. So yeah, those are just some of my insights, I guess. There's another question from Whoopi. Is there any branding requirements / disclosure to show our end users the name Alpaca in our app? No, you don't have to show any Alpaca branded pages in your app. It's entirely your own app, especially in a trading app. You would be, your own tech company, and we would just be supporting you on the back end. So yeah. Question from AA. Are there any operational apps built by other companies that use Alpaca API? So yeah, there are a couple apps that are out there. For a complete list, I think we can provide that maybe after this webinar, Crystal. But yeah, there are a couple out there that you can look to. Question from Michael. Does the data only give security prices or also fundamental technical data? So yeah, it provides a lot of data. I guess I want to say I can tell you a little bit about what we offer. So we have like the trades API, which provides like historical trade data for a given ticker symbol on a specified date. Latest trade gets you the latest trade for the requested security. You can get quotes like NBB quotes, NBBO quotes for a given ticker symbol at a specified date. The latest quote, which is going to give you the latest quote. Bars, which we talked about. Snapshot can provide you with kind of a snapshot of the asset that you're looking at. And it's just going to provide you with the latest trade, latest quote, minute bar, daily bar, and previous daily bar, things like that. So yeah, that's kind of what we offer into the microdata API as well. I think Crest is sharing some of our case studies, I guess, of partners who have launched apps with the broker API. So you can go ahead and look there and see a list of those there. Another question from Whoopi. Thank you for answering all my questions. Your knowledge level and speaking performance is very encouraged. I'm excited to explore more details. Thanks, Whoopi. That's great to hear. Yeah, I'm glad this was a good experience for you. Question from Nandy, do you report via API when an order is settled? Yeah, so yeah, like I mentioned before, the events API, you can view that stream there, and you'll receive order updates there. And there's a complete list of kind of all the order updates that we'll give to you. So you can look at our documentation and view that there. And just, yeah, highlighting what Crest said, you can find more resources on alpaca.market/blog. You can view kind of our announcement articles or learn articles around how to use our products and things like that. It's a great resource to check out.
Yeah, so these are some of the additional resources that you can tap into. We have broker API docs, and as always, we have a Slack community where a lot of our team members are very active. And we also have a Learn page that offers some resources here. And then coming soon to Broker API, crypto is currently available to all partners in Sandbox, but we're excited to introduce crypto support for Broker API, meaning that your app built with Broker API will be able to offer crypto trading 24/7, and we'll have more documentation and Learn articles on this. And another one is Currency Cloud. We have a partnership and integration with them that's coming soon for seamless cross-border payments and international onboarding. And again, if we didn't get around to your questions today or you think of anything afterwards, please reach out to sales@alpaca.markets and they'll be able to help you there. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.